And a guy came in the store and he had a Louis Vuitton pouch. And it was like Louis Vuitton pouch is $5 worth of vinyl. Everybody got super excited about that pouch. And I looked at that and I said, they are fascinated, but it's the symbols. It's the symbol. So I thought to myself, damn, if I could have them walking around looking like that pouch, imagine what I could do.
Welcome to Aggressive Intelligence Black Business Files, where we uncover the hidden stories of hustlers, innovators, and entrepreneurs who changed the game. Today's episode takes us to Harlem, to a tailor who ran a shop that never closed, dressed stars and hustlers alike, and built a fashion empire the law tried to erase. His journey ran through celebrity drama, midnight street fights, federal raids, and decades later, a shocking twist that flipped the fashion world on its head. This is the story of Dapper Dan, from Knockoffs to Gucci's secret weapon. Dapper Dan's story begins in Harlem, 1944. Daniel Day grew up in the heart of a neighborhood that lived and breathed style. Harlem wasn't just about what you had in your pocket. It was about how you presented yourself. A sharp suit, polished shoes, a fedora at the right tilt. In Harlem, fashion was survival. Dan came of age in a Harlem pulsing with jazz clubs, hustlers, and later the early days of hip-hop. He hustled too, gambling, playing the numbers, making ends meet. But unlike many hustlers, he was also a reader, a thinker, a man who paid attention. By the early 1980s, Harlem was hungry for luxury. Rappers wanted Gucci belts, hustlers wanted Louis Vuitton coats, boxers wanted to shine in mink. But downtown, luxury houses weren't catering to them. In fact, many textile suppliers refused to sell to Dan outright. Because of his race, because of where his shop was, because Harlem wasn't supposed to be part of the luxury market. That barrier could have stopped him, but instead, it lit a fire. If they wouldn't sell him the fabrics, he would make the fabrics himself. Dan began experimenting with silk screening, teaching himself how to print logos onto leather and cloth. What looked like rejection became innovation, and it would define everything he built next. In 1982, Dan opened Dapper Dan's boutique at 43 East 125th Street. From the outside, it looked like a small tailor shop. Inside, it was an empire in the making. Unlike Fifth Avenue stores, Dap's shop never closed. It was open 24/7, 7 days a week. His clientele didn't live by 9 to 5 hours. They lived by the street. Hustlers came in at 3 a.m. with cash. Athletes rolled through after fights. Rappers came in after shows. Dap made sure the lights never went out. Here's the real genius. When Dan tried to buy luxury fabrics, Gucci and Louis Vuitton turned him away. They sold to elite designers, not to a Harlem tailor. Most people would have given up. But not Dap. He bought a textile printing machine. He experimented. He taught himself to print logos onto leather. He mastered something luxury brands themselves weren't doing, creating yards of custom leather and fabric covered in monograms. That innovation was the backbone of his empire. Upstairs, he employed teams of Senegalese tailors who cut, stitched, and finished the garments. At times, a dozen or more were working shifts. On one floor, garments were designed. On another, fabrics were printed. The whole building became a fashion house, 1 block from Lenox Avenue. Word spread fast. Harlem had its own couture house, only this one didn't care about Paris or Milan. It cared about the culture. In 1987, Eric B. and Rakim wore matching Gucci jackets by Dap on the cover of Paid in Full. That cover became one of the most iconic images in hip-hop history. Those jackets weren't made in Europe. They were made upstairs in Harlem. LL Cool J was another regular. He wore a Dapper Dan Fendi jacket in a national photo shoot. That single photo became both his flex and his curse. It put Dap squarely in the crosshairs of Fendi's lawyers. Salt and Peppa strutted across stages in oversized Dapper Dan jackets, loud, powerful, logo-drenched. They weren't just costumes. They were statements. Women could flex too. And then came the athletes. Mike Tyson walked into Dap's shop like it was his second home. So did other boxers, NBA stars, and NFL players. To them, Harlem wasn't just culture. It was the new front row. Every piece was custom. Every jacket told a story. Dap wasn't copying luxury. He was rewriting it. One night, Harlem's most famous tailor found himself at the center of a heavyweight drama. It was August 23, 1988. Around 4:30 a.m., Mike Tyson pulled up to Dap's boutique, rocking one of his custom jackets. Waiting nearby was former opponent Mitch "Blood" Green. The two had history. Green had beef with Tyson over money, management, and respect. That night, words turned to fists. Tyson landed punches that left Green's face swollen shut. Tyson broke his own hand, and it all went down right outside Dapper Dan's shop. The tabloids had a field day. Front pages screamed about the brawl. Photos of Green's face were everywhere, and in every story, one name kept popping up: Dapper Dan's boutique. For Dap, it was free advertising, but it was also dangerous, because while Harlem was cheering, downtown lawyers were circling. Here's the thing about Dap. He didn't see himself as a counterfeiter. He called his pieces knockups. They weren't cheap imitations. They were innovations. New silhouettes, new functions, new swagger. Luxury brands made handbags. Dap made full-length parkas. Luxury brands made dainty wallets. Dap made mink-lined bombers. Luxury brands catered to elites. Dap catered to Harlem hustlers who wanted armor that said power the moment they walked in a room. Some jackets had hidden compartments for cash. Some were built oversized to project dominance. Cars rolled out of his shop with custom monogrammed interiors. In Harlem, a Dapper Dan piece wasn't fashion. It was status. It was survival. Success brought heat. By the late 1980s, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, MCM, and Fendi were sending investigators and lawyers uptown. Raids became a fact of life. U.S. Marshals stormed in. They seized fabrics, half-finished coats, even printing machines. Yet every time, Dap reopened. His underground factory was too fast. He could restock and rebuild overnight. It was a cat-and-mouse game. Harlem hustle versus European fashion houses. There's even a surprising cameo. During one Fendi raid, a young corporate lawyer named Sonia Sotomayor, yes, the future Supreme Court Justice, was there representing the brand. Dan later recalled how she actually stopped another company from seizing goods that day because they didn't have the paperwork. Even the raids had legends attached. But the raids wore him down. And in 1992, Fendi struck the final blow. After spotting LL Cool J's custom Fendi outfit in magazines, they built a strong case. Marshals raided his shop one last time. This time, they didn't just take clothes. They took everything. Without his equipment, Dap couldn't bounce back. After a decade of 24/7 fashion glory, the boutique closed. For Harlem, it felt like the end of an era. But here's the thing. Dapper Dan's influence didn't stop just because his shop did. And what happens next proves that culture leads and corporations follow. Before we get to how Gucci went from copying him to partnering with him, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to Aggressive Intelligence. We bring you hidden black business files, stories of the innovators who forced industries to change forever. Even after the boutique closed, Dap's fingerprints were everywhere. Streetwear exploded in the 1990s and 2000s. Fubu, Sean John, Rocawear, Supreme. Their oversized silhouettes, logo-heavy styles, and luxury street mashups, straight out of Dap's playbook. Hip-hop videos kept the aesthetic alive. Fans still wore his pieces like relics. And quietly, Dap kept working underground, doing custom work for private clients who knew where to find him. Luxury houses, meanwhile, slowly began to mimic what Harlem had pioneered. Logos got louder. Streetwear collaborations became mainstream. But the man who started it all, he was still in the shadows. Until 2017. Florence, 2017. Gucci's Cruise collection hits the runway. A model struts out in a mink and leather jacket with giant balloon sleeves covered in Gucci logos. The internet explodes. Harlem knows this design. Olympic sprinter Diane Dixon posts a photo of herself from 1989 in a nearly identical jacket made by Dap. She captions it, "Give credit where credit is due." The resemblance is undeniable. Gucci tries to call it an homage, but the backlash is fierce. The irony is rich. Gucci once sent lawyers to raid him. Now they were raiding his ideas. The scandal forces Gucci to act, and instead of digging in, they pivot. In 2018, Gucci announces a partnership with Dapper Dan. Together, they open a new atelier in Harlem, inside a historic brownstone. This time, it's official. Gucci supplies the fabrics. Dap creates the designs. The shop is appointment only, exclusive but rooted in Harlem soil.
Everything that I make in Gucci here, you won't see nowhere else in the world. We welcome the community. They can come here, bring their family here, they can lounge here, and then we take them over here because this wall over here is like a pictorial history of my whole journey. This picture right here is me 30 years ago. This right here is my Jeep that LL Cool J had in his video, the big old butt. This young man here, Floyd Mayweather, was just starting out then. Everything you've seen him in the ring with for the last 17 years, I made it exclusively.
Dapper Dan's story proves a simple truth. Culture leads, corporations follow. In the 80s, he built a 24/7 fashion house in Harlem. He taught himself textile printing. He created silhouettes luxury never dared to. He dressed a generation of rappers, athletes, and hustlers. He survived raids, lawsuits, and shutdowns. And decades later, the same brands that tried to erase him came back asking for collaboration. Dapper Dan wasn't a counterfeiter. He was an innovator. He didn't knock off luxury. He forced luxury to acknowledge the streets. From street knockups to Gucci's secret weapon, Dapper Dan's legacy is proof that Harlem doesn't follow trends. Harlem makes them. This has been another episode of Aggressive Intelligence, Black Business Files. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, drop a comment about your favorite Dapper Dan creation, and subscribe. Because here, we uncover the stories that change how you see business, culture, and power. And trust me, the next one, you won't want to miss it.